One Piece chapter 1115. How are you guys doing? It is good to talk to you guys again. Oda came back with a banger, and you guys know I'm not lying about that. If you read a chapter, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. It's one of those chapters that, if you know, you know, but there's some things that we gotta really have to dissect to understand why it's so important. And it's one of those that it answers questions, but it leads to so many more. And I have a bunch. I'm gonna let you guys know what those questions are. Let's dive in, shall we? It's great. One Piece is back, and we get to have a good time with it. Let's not waste any time. One Piece chapter 1115. Continental artifacts. Is that the name of it? Is that Continental fragments. Per usual, we start with a cover story. Well, let me start and say I hope you guys are doing okay. Hope life is good. Everything is great, healthy, strong, safe. Now, cover story. Yamato. She's on her pilgrimage. She's continuing that. Now she's with Hiyori and Toko. No problem with that. Cool. I feel like we're going to have moments with her and all the people we've seen before. Not all, some of them are dead. A lot of the people we saw in the past. My question is, where is Tama? More than likely we get something with Tama. More than likely. But now I'm asking the question, is Tama not here with Hiyori because she's a Kurozomi? I don't know. I'm kidding. But Yamato, she's on a pilgrimage and she's just going through on her quest. It's almost like a game, RPG, right? Where they have her going to different places to get to the next place. And it's just going to be that. The last cover story is pretty long. I expect this to be pretty long as well. So I think it's going to be a while before we get anything significant. What my hope is, like I told you guys before, Big Mom and Kaido stuff, Blackbeard stuff. Now I'm like, we could find out some Kaido stuff where it's like not just Big Mom and Kaido, but Yamato finding out more about herself through Kaido. Maybe she finds like an Oni shrine or something like that, where she just gets some more insight on who she is, where her dad came from, etc., where she just becomes more knowledgeable in regards to his decisions, because he was implying that Yamato was ignorant and doesn't know much. So I would like that, just bringing things full circle, closing that loop a little bit, which, you know, can be closed through a Kaido backstory, but time will tell. Now, chapter Continental. Not artifacts, fragments. We go back to Wano. Something that I want to point out here, it's not much going on. We do see Tama, though, which is cool. Momonosuke, he doesn't care that she's a Kurozomi. We see Tama, and something Momonosuke says that may get lost, but I think is really important. He says, so you were a pirate, Joy Boy, just like Luffy. And then Kinemon's like, you know of him, my lord. And he doesn't answer. We go to the next scene, and why it's significant is, well, Momonosuke read the Journal of Odin. So more than likely, Joy Boy was mentioned in that journal. And so Momonosuke, he's piecing things together as far as the similarities between Joy Boy and Luffy. And we got some more similarities, confirmations in this chapter, actually, between Joy Boy and Luffy. So that was pretty good. So that was my takeaway from that scene. Not much to take away there other than that. I think that was the intention. So let's move on. The funniest part of the chapter, by far, we see Damara Black and the fake straw. Oh, sorry guys, it's not the fake Straw Hat Pirates anymore. We have the fake Kid Pirates. I said this is a Kid W. It's a Kid W. I know you guys don't want to admit it. It's a Kid W that he has. The former cosplayers of the Straw Hat Pirates, they're now cosplaying the Kid Pirates. The funniest is seeing my boy Drip in Killer's Mask. For a lot of you, if you don't know Drip, you don't know Manjiro. For whatever reason, I know the names of these people, right? Just because they are significant pieces in the One Piece history. And so we should know their names. Drip having on the Killer Mask and then having the paint going through. Bro, they are dedicated. They're in jail. Even in jail, right? They're praising Sun God, or what's the name? Sun God Jika. Kid is back, but it's not the kid that you think. Bro, Oda, what are we doing? I just love the fact that Damara Black also called Joy Boy Joy Toy, which just shows how fraudulent they are. They're not even listening. He's like, man, just do Joy Toy. We don't care about him. Absolutely beautiful moment. It's a great moment. Oda's a good troll. He's a great troll. I want to point out as well, this is great for story consistency, considering that Damara Black and his crew, they did this in the past with the Straw Hats when the Straw Hats disappeared. So this is Oda using Kid's disappearance and his destruction as a way for Damara Black to capitalize off of Kid's reputation and saying, hey, because Kid has disappeared, we are here now. So it is consistent with the story as well. That's what makes it even more entertaining and good. Now to Vegapunk, because it's one of those chapters where Vegapunk is speaking, obviously, and a lot of things are happening in the background. And so you're trying to focus on what's happening in the background, but you're reading what Vegapunk is saying, and you're like, oh my God, which one should I pay attention to? Of course, you can just take your time and read through again and again to kind of get what's going on. Read Vegapunk first and then go through and read the chapter, the things that's going on in the background. But Vegapunk starts out and he talks about the poneglyphs, saying, I only have a handful. I haven't read all of them. And some people were using this fact that he stated to discredit Vegapunk. And I'm just like, yep, slow down, because he got access to the Library of Ohara through the Elbaf Giants. So he is piecing together not only the poneglyph information, but also the research of the Oharans. So if there's anybody that I can trust and I deem credible, it would be Vegapunk. It's very similar to how I view his theory on devil fruits because I think that's an absolute fact. I think he nailed it, even though I don't know if we ever get a detailed explanation like that on devil fruits. So based off of what Vegapunk said, I'm leaning towards agreeing with him. Of course, there's going to be more than that, even with the poneglyphs and everything going on with the Void Sentry. There's going to be more to it than Vegapunk knows, but I think he's definitely onto something, and he's probably 80, 60, 70, 80% correct. There's just nuances about it that he would never know because he wasn't there and he hasn't read all the poneglyphs yet. And that's what's being saved through Robin and even through Luffy and their discovery, which is more of a groundbreaker, right? Or a game changer that Oda is saving, but he is piecing things together. If there's anybody we can trust, is Vegapunk. Some of us sound like the people in Mocktown. Like, bro, believe what you're hearing. He's that guy. We already knew this. A war happened in the past, and it's pretty evident based on the outcome, whereas we have the world government. They exist, and we know they had an ancient kingdom. They're trying to somewhat control the information getting out. So this is telling me a war happened, how it went down, the things that went down. They're trying to keep that suppressed because they don't look good because of it. So yes, a war happened. Vegapunk confirmed it. A great war in the distant past. So, hey, okay, things are heating up. Something that's interesting as well to point out is that Vegapunk says that in the distant past, Joy Boy faced an enemy known as the organization now known as the world government. Now, I gotta point out, for the most part, this is something that we expected that Joy Boy was against the world government back in the day. It was sometimes painted that it wasn't necessarily the world government against Joy Boy per se, but the world government against the ancient kingdom because they came together to somewhat take down the ancient kingdom. Now it's being framed that it's the world government, we know with House Nerona, all these people came together to take down Joy Boy. I think there's more nuance to it. Obviously, I think that Joy Boy could have been on the ancient kingdom side and them trying to monopolize the information or the technology from the ancient kingdom could be the reason. But then I start to think about, well, Vegapunk is painting this picture that society or civilization was just advanced. So this ancient kingdom didn't stand out or wasn't separate from anything. It was just what civilization was back then. The reason why everything is where it is now is because everything sunk to the bottom because of the water rising, because of the cataclysmic event that happened, which is most likely the ancient weapon being used in this war against Joy Boy. So there are more important things that are here that you don't see it at first, but it's just when you read through the tea leaves, it is all right there. Now, I don't mind the conclusions of some of the world government operatives or world government operatives, the Marines, because they're saying, well, obviously we were against him. He was a pirate, right? Where they're like, well, pirate, bad, world government, good, obviously. So there's some people that are still naive to the thinking that, yo, if you're part of the world government or the Marines, you're good. If you're going against a pirate, they're bad, which is just like, guys, leave room for nuance. It's going to crumble. Their perspective and view of this good, bad Marine pirate is going to crumble if it's not crumbling already based on the information that's currently being revealed in the background. And so I'm going to talk about the different panels and also talk about what's happening in the background, because while Vegapunk is saying this, we see Luffy still fighting against War Curie with Dorian Brogy running away. So they still can't figure out how to hurt War Curie. And I'm be honest, guys, I don't care about everything happening in the background because it's just a placeholder. The matchups don't matter. The fights don't matter. Nobody's going to win because at this point, it is just buying time for us to get Vegapunk's information. That is the purpose and the focus of this chapter. That's why those things are happening. No dialogue in the background. It's almost like when Luffy and Lucha were fighting earlier, and it's like earlier in the arc, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't as important considering that this is to give Vegapunk the time in the room to talk about Gear 5 Luffy and to see Gear 5 Luffy. So the outcome, it's inevitable Luffy's going to win, but how long he's fighting, what's happening, much ado about nothing, because the whole point is to buy time for the author, and the author is using this to buy time to explain something. Same thing here. Let's continue though. Vegapunk surmises the alliance was feasible and was necessary to go against Joy Boy, the faction that Joy Boy belonged. So it's telling me that Joy Boy had allies, which we figured, we knew some of the allies could be Lily, could be Toki, could be Zunisha. It is painting the picture a little bit. Okay, did Joy Boy travel around the world and gain these allies? Did he just join the ancient kingdom and their faction? However, it was a full-on war. Vegapunk does give very important information saying, hey, I don't know what caused this. I'm not on either side. I don't know the morality of each. But what I do know, it was a clash of two opposing ideologies. Now, based on the world government and how they are formed at this point, you would lean to the side of the pirate because whatever they were fighting for must be on the right side because, well, Joy Boy, he is the progenitor, the precursor to Luffy, right? it can't be a bad person that can be that, right? Wrong. I'm not just gonna lean on the side of the pirates just because of what's happening now. I'm gonna leave some room for nuance, where maybe the world government had some points. Maybe the pirates had some points. More than likely, they will be on the right side of history, in my mind, even though they're on the wrong side of history because they lost. Things are starting to make sense. Juro Boy's apology, why he couldn't accomplish what he was set out to accomplish with Poseidon back then. Was Poseidon helping in the fight against them? I doubt it, because why even send that apology if Poseidon was going to join you, right? It would feel like Marco saying he's not going to show up and then show up. That was an unnecessary Marco stray. I'm not going to apologize for it. Vegapunk made sure to point out as well that Juro Boy existed in a fantastical civilization, meaning anything was possible back then. Deities, devil fruits, all these things existed back then. This is a time where Roger wished he would have lived in, which is because it's fantastical. There's so many things happening, so many possibilities back then. It's like, I wished I lived back then, I want to point out as well that while Vegapunk is talking about this, we see a silhouette which looks like Sun God Nika, Gear 5 Luffy. It looks just like it. And he's going against people that seem to have crowns on, which is implying that the kings were fighting. I don't think the kings were there at all. It's showing that just Juro Boy had a Gear 5 form that was very similar to what Luffy has now. And so somebody said the reason why he lost was because of the time limit. It made me chuckle. It might be facts though, but it showed this silhouetted moment as well as Zoe and Zunisha. So it's somewhat implying these were the allies and these are the people he was going against. So more to come. More to come with that. As he goes on to explain, right, that back then the civilization was so advanced, it's hard to believe that it existed 900 years ago, and that everything back then was beyond our modern science. So that leads me to believe that it wasn't just against the ancient kingdom. That's just how things operated back then. So why try to monopolize anything from that specific kingdom? That's just what it was, right? Unless they had the ancient weapons. Were they trying to create something? Again, I need more context, obviously, but it's now leading me away a bit from just they were trying to take the information from the ancient kingdom. Clashing ideologies. What is it? Did they feel like the information that they were trying to put out there should have been controlled? Were they trying to control information? Whereas the ancient kingdom or the people, the powers that be, they wanted that information to be privy to the people, then it would fall in line with how the world government is now. Not going to deny that, but much to parse through. Again, while they're talking about all these advancements, the weapons, etc., they're showing the minks. They showed Foxy as well. Foxy doesn't care. Foxy's like, what is this peanut-headed man saying? Right? And they're like, they're making boss hungry. But Vegapunk is explaining that this technology is baffling even to himself, right? But Foxy, in the meantime, he's just like, bro, I don't care about this. This doesn't matter to me. I'm just like, is Foxy important here because of his devil fruit and him being able to slow things? Is Oda throwing a hint there by having Foxy specifically here when he talks about technology being baffling, right? Was Foxy's devil fruit because somebody wished to do some things that were created by weapons back then? These are things, and this is where my mind is taking me because of just things Oda is throwing in. You know what I mean? Then we have a slight cliffhanger where Vegapunk says, well, and that's the problem. And I'm just like, what's the problem? We go away a little bit and then we go to Stussy. And it's Edison. Edison has a suicidal kink, okay? He's like Pedro. He's done it several times in the arc where he just jumped into things without really thinking, or with thinking, but with the acknowledgement that I could die. That's just Edison. And he cares a lot for people. So he's just like, bro, it is what it is. He calls Stussy. He's like, Stussy, take the barrier down and get out of there. And Stussy's like, I can't do that. What if something happens to Straw Hat Crew? Edison's like, yo, I'm going to keep it real with you, bro. They can get past the barrier if they want to. So keeping this up, it doesn't really matter because the people that we want to keep out, it can't. So yeah. Get out of there. Edison is saying we've done all we can. We see Jinbei still carrying Zoro, and this moment is hilarious as well because it's like, yo, why is he still carrying him? I understand picking him up to get away from Rob Lucci unsuspecting, but why is he still carrying him? It didn't make sense until somebody while I was streaming said it, and they said, yeah, he has to carry him or they're gonna get lost on the way there. Obviously, if he was not carrying Zoro will end up on the coast next to Nurse Juro or something. So he has to carry him so they can get to where they're going, right? That's like, bro, grown man I can't even complain because I need a GPS everywhere I go. And of course, Nami's pissed because of Zoro. They have to wait, right? And it's like, she knows it's not Jinbei. It's just like, bro, Zoro, if we missed this because of you, bro, I'm on your head. Stussy has a moment here where it's almost like she come to terms with like, okay, good. I'm happy that they can get away because Stella would never forgive me. But what do I have to live for now that Stella is gone? Which I'm starting to think more and more that Vegapunk may be gone for good. I'm still holding out hope that he comes back as a Jarvis, as a voice, as a conscience that can assimilate into things and control things. AI, if you may. It was an interesting moment, but But it was weirder because Kaku was right there and he had like just the ellipsis, like, because she's like, what am I meant to live for? Is this implying a team up between the two? Because can Kaku return to the world government? Where does Kaku's allegiances lie? I'm gonna assume with Rob Lucci and those guys because he seems to be that kind of guy's guy. What does this mean? Can Stussy come back? Well, Stussy definitely can't come back and be a part of the world government. So it just makes things a bit interesting there because it's adding character emotion a bit to a character that seemingly is void of that, devoid of that. Every time she's been introduced, it seems like, yo, I'm here because of duty. And this is the first time that we see Stussy have true thoughts. And I think Kaku himself, he's like, I've never seen this side of her. Even though she's betraying us, these are true thoughts and feelings. Where do we go from here? Small, but I thought it was interesting. That's just me. We get to a very convoluted part of the chapter just because a lot is going on. And this is where Venus Juro is fighting against Bonnie, Oimori and Kashi, Sanji, right? And Sanji, of course, he's on his head when we go to the panel. And they're saying, don't let him use his sword. Because I guess he's been wreaking havoc with his sword. And he's pissed. But in the meantime, he's trying to sense things. People are speculating it could be the voice of all things, but I don't think it's not that extreme. And I talked to my guy Sai about it. Something that we talked about was that if it was the voice of all things, Luffy's tapped into this before. Using the voice of all things, people communicating with each other. Luffy is tapped into that if it's the voice of all things, like with the Sea King. So I don't think it's the voice of all things. I think this is just straight up observation hockey, right? They're just on the same channel. They just tune themselves enough. They've been together long enough, man. It's been a long ass time. They just know what channel each other's on and they're there. That's how I look at it. But he's pissed, man, and he's slicing and dicing everything, cutting the heads off the ships. Bonnie's dodging and something small, but Bonnie had to get saved by Frankie. Frankie saved Edison recently, or rather Lilith in a recent chapter, and saved Nico Robin as well, and then even another woman. So Frankie's been doing Sanji things this arc when I think about it. But either way, he saves Bonnie. Bonnie's like, I can't maintain Distorted Future for too long. And so Distorted Future has been presented as very broken, and Oda is somewhat reeling it back saying, yeah, it's really broken, but I can't maintain it for too long. When Oda says something like that, she means she can only maintain it for 10 minutes. Okay, those are the rules. I don't make them. I just explain them. Something else to point out is that Vegapunk says the Void Century ended with Joy Boy's defeat. So I'm like, okay, the Void Century ended with Joy Boy's defeat. So was the fight going on for a century because of Joy Boy? Does that mean Joy Boy has been in the fight for 100 years? Does that then mean, dun dun dun, Joy Boy is not human and Joy Boy was either a buccaneer or more than likely, dun dun dun, a giant? Is that something you guys could surmise? I don't know, because when it said that, I was like, the Void Century ended with Joy Boy's, that's when it ended, right? It said Joy Boy and his faction was fighting against him. The Void Century ended with Joy Boy's defeat. So go back to the big hat and it starts to make sense, right? So that's how I'm feeling. That's how I'm feeling. And of course, while he's saying this, we see the Ancient Giant and we see Zunisha. So it's just like two really large things. So I'm just like, two large things. You imply that he was basically fighting for damn near 100 years. Was he another large thing? Crazy jumps? I don't think so. I think it's pretty plausible. Now again, whilst Vegapunk is speaking, Venus Juro, he's losing his mind, right? He's trying to sense the Den and Mushis. He's like, it's too many life forms up here. So he's like, you know what? I'm gonna cut it all, right? And he basically cuts this structure. He does a law move where it's like, yo, we about to change it, break the gears, right? He just cuts everything in half. Not gonna lie, it's an impressive feat. It just doesn't resonate as much with us because we saw Law. We saw what Law was able to do. Not even past Law. We saw Zoro, right? We saw like some of the greatest swordsmen that we've seen. And it's very impressive though. Very impressive. Don't want to downplay it at all. Now the Seraphim exposed, but that's not even the important stuff that's going on here. Vegapunk said after the war, there were grander consequences. Consequences. Whatever do you mean, Vegapunk? He says, in wake of the ancient conflict, it scarred the world, and those scars never healed. I'm like, okay, what happened? Like, what was the scab, man? Tell me what the scab is. Vegapunk goes into something obvious, and then he has an insane way to work out of it, because he says, we know traveling between islands are difficult, right? And some people, they're just content with living and dying where they are. They don't go anywhere because just how difficult it is to get around. People are like, of course, that's obvious. I mean, you don't have to say that. Vegapunk's like, yeah, it's obvious and common knowledge. Now, it wasn't like that back then, because back then, because of the cataclysmic event, everything sunk under the water. And we are living on the fragments of the continent, or rather the remnants of the continental fragments. And then they show a civilization or something underwater. It looks like a palace or a castle. It looks like damn near a city underwater, like a bridge. It's like this fantastical thing, which makes you think of like Atlantis, things like that. We talked about this before, but what I start to question is the fishmen. Fishmen, how much do you know? Because whilst this was happening, these are the times where you are flourishing and you somewhat try to take over. But then these are the times where as well, the celestial dragons, they go higher up. On top top of the red line where the Lunarians were. So the timeline of all these things is interesting, but now it's confirmed the former civilization is underwater. Could the One Piece be underwater? It is a possibility, right? But it makes sense for a lot of these older people that we feel like know a lot, like Crocus, right? Shanks. No Devil for Users, Rayleigh, coding ships. Rayleigh said, yo, once you find out everything, then you'll have your own answer. Rayleigh's answer was to start coding ships because business was about to boom. I'm not mad at it. When you think about everything being underwater now and living on the remnants, right? Because Impel Down, it's Impel Down, but it's Impel Up. They built up, right? They built up and reinforced it for being underwater. Everything that we see, it's on the remnants, just like Wano. Just like Wano. It's no different than Wano. Wano, this ancient Wano underwater, and they went up higher because they needed to. That should have told us everything we needed to know. Where do we go from here? Well, Vegapunk had some more thoughts. Something I want to point out is while this is happening, we see the revolutionaries as well, right? We see Shimotsuki Village, we see the revolutionaries, we see Sabo, right? Everyone's reacting, and the person that doesn't say anything just ellipses his Dragon. And again, I want to say this, that I do not hate Dragon. I don't love Dragon per se. I just understand this is a character that Oda has been building up for so long, and so I expect a great payoff. And man, it must be tough being a Dragon stan because he doesn't say anything. He just ellipses. And it's like, Dragon, you're just poking it. Like, do something, man. And I'm not one of those guys that think Dragon has to make a move or whatever. It is difficult when it's like things like this happen and Dragon has no feedback, no insight, no nothing. And it's just like ellipses. Bro, it's not that big a deal. It's not. It's just, we see Sabo. Sabo's voice actor is not having a good week, but we see Sabo, Flame Emperor. Vegapunk goes into more information saying that, yo, you don't have to believe me, but bro, this is real. He also goes on to say that he's saying, you know, that over the century that the seawater rose 200 meters, and 200 meters, think about it. To put it into context, 1 or 2 meters when the water rose recently after the Lelouch incident, it was flooding, right? And making islands uninhabitable. If water rises 200 meters, pretty much everything else will be underwater. The context of it is insane. The thing is, Vegapunk is trying to reel them in because he's like, I know what I'm saying sounds crazy, bro, but it is real. They do try to give us context by letting us know a warship is only 60 meters tall. A warship. If water rises 60 meters, how about twice that and then some? 3 times that. So you get to the point where I can understand people being like, come on, right? Because Nojiko didn't care. Nojiko was like, they're like, Nojiko, you hear this? She's like, I gotta go tend to my tangerines. Tell me about it later. And Nojiko looks so good. She looks so good. And again, Mocktown, I don't blame them necessarily for how they're reacting because it sounds crazy. It does. But man, if it is true, and for us, we know it's true. The world is screwed. The One Piece world is definitely screwed. You go to Drum Island, Sakura Kingdom, right? Chopper's hometown with Dalton and Lady Korea, Lady Korea. I wanted some insight from her. It's like, yo, you're old as dirt. Like, do you know anything? She's like, you know what? The world finds a way to keep things interesting. Where it's like, even her, even her, she doesn't know anything. And then we see Miss Golden Week. I'm like, Miss Golden Week, what's the context here? Because Miss Golden Week, she's from Baroque Works, the former partner of Mr. 3, and she had the ability to hypnotize. So I was like, what's the importance here? Does it mean anything? I was going back and looking at just like different things in Miss Golden Week. I think Oda's has given us a bunch of characters that we've seen before, and maybe hiding old characters in the background as well. So I was trying to look at set as well. Maybe after more time, I see characters and see things that make sense. We're just getting feedback, right? The reaction chapters I love the most, and seeing just people reacting to all this information, fantastical. What I loved as well is when we went to Water 7, everybody's paying attention. Nobody's saying anything, everybody's paying attention because like I said, Water 7 is believable in Water 7 because if it rises by 5 meters, they're screwed. 10, bro, it's out of there. 200? But that's why Iceberg is trying to do what he's doing. He says, yo, you're going to assume that this is a natural disaster. He's like, nah, I think it's man-made calamity. And they're like, bro, what you talking about? Is it okay, man? How can we listen? Man-made? And Big News is losing his mind. I think Big News is on the way there. Big News is losing. He's like, you can't be serious. Vivi's like, shut up for a second. Because remember, Vivi, she is from the House of the Kings. They didn't ascend up, but she's from the house. She's from the inner circle. She should be a part of the world government, right? Technically, she is. So she's like, wait, hold on, I gotta hear this. Well, Vegapunk basically explains it and says, there wasn't any natural buildup. There was nothing there based on my research that said anything built up to this point. It just happened. 200 meters in 100 years is not plausible unless something caused this spike. It had to be man-made. He then says a few jarring things to end this chapter, saying, 1, ancient weapons did this. 2, they are waiting and ready to be used again. 3, the Great War from back then is still happening. So based on all that information, what does that tell us? What does that tell me? Well, saying the Great War is still happening is basically saying that the world government, they're still in power and they're still fighting against the powers that be, which is the suppressing information. They're going against people and going against pirates like they were back then, and pirates who deem to find out the truth about the world. There's still more information that Vegapunk has to tell us, because even with that, saying the Great War is still ongoing, okay, tell me more. What do you mean? What's still ongoing? Who has the ancient weapons? Where are the ancient weapons? What are the ancient weapons? In the meantime, Emu's just playing with his butterflies. This is a cataclysmic chapter because it confirms a lot of theories. It lets us know some information about Joy Boy, some context about Joy Boy and the war. And it also prepares us for what's to come and say, yo, it's still ongoing, and somewhat prepares the world. Somebody said this and I agree. This chapter wasn't necessarily just for us. It more captivates the people in the One Piece world, because it's a lot of stuff that for us, we pretty much already knew or figured. Context and specifics we didn't know, but a lot of it we figured. For the people that's hearing this for the first time, you have the Marines that are saying, don't worry about this, but we got work to do. You got the Marines that are saying, I don't know, I want to listen to this. It's going to lead to civil war. People are going to pick sides. But Doflamingo said it, who will fight whom? It's going to be a lot of civil war. It's going to be a lot of free-for-alls, because what do you do? People have different beliefs. Some people are going to believe Vegapunk, period. And some people are just going to be like, I'm not believing this guy. Let's get back to work. This is monumental. And this is the tip of the iceberg. Seriously, there's so much left. I think Vegapunk has left to give us. And again, we cannot discredit him just because he hasn't read all the poneglyphs. He has done the research and he has the information. Fantastic chapter. Absolutely loved it. Guys, give me your thoughts. I know I talked a lot and I don't apologize for it because a lot went on. And I will have a more condensed version. There is a podcast episode coming this weekend as well. So just stay tuned for that. It's a lot to talk about. One Piece is back with a vengeance. Thank you guys for being here and watching. If you made it this far, drop a like because you clearly liked what I was saying. More information. I'm doing some rereading. I'll be dropping a very important video this weekend. So yeah, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.